Welcome to Decode, AI for life sciences and healthcare. You're listening to our introductory series, Keep Talking About AI.
A quick message from our sponsors. Your brand team spends weeks getting answers that already exist in your research archive. The intelligence is there, the access is not. Sagan Agents by ZoomRx makes your entire research history queryable in seconds. Visit zoomrx.com to book a demo.
Welcome to this episode of Keep Talking. Our guest today is John Shortell. John is a senior market research and insights leader with over 30 years of experience, including the last 15 years focused on the specialty medicines market, specifically oncology. He's lived and worked in Canada, the USA, and Germany, and led global insights teams through many major industry shifts, from the rise of big data to digital transformation. Having worked on both sides of the consulting industry divide, John combines the rigor of an external advisor with the practicality of an in-house leader. His professional focus remains in oncology, while he's also passionate and optimistic about AI's potential to enhance the insights industry. Welcome to the show, John. Appreciate you taking time to talk to us.
Oh, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm looking forward to today's talk.
John, I'll give you a softball to get started. Let's say you had to bet your kind of entire professional career on this question: whether 5 years down the line, AI dramatically disrupts more than 50% or more of the insights jobs in pharma, or no? Which side of the bet would you take?
Well, if that's the softball, I can't wait till we get to the ninth inning. Jeez. Okay, so a little tongue-in-cheek, but I would say yes, I would expect 50% or more of our jobs to be impacted. But that doesn't mean that I expect them to be eliminated. And I think that's probably the big fear that not only the insights industry has, but a lot of other ones as well. So yeah, I would be comfortable with that bet.
So impacted, but not eliminated. So let's talk about how you think it's going to be impacted.
Certainly. Are you asking, I guess, where and how I see that being impacted today?
No, let's retain 5 years. I think
Okay.
Today it's still a bit in flux, but 5 years down the line, do you see, for example, the structure of insights teams changing, or the mandate of insights teams changing fundamentally due to AI?
So I no. I would say it does. So I don't believe it's going to eliminate insights teams, but rather I think it's going to elevate them. And I see that I envision that happening in probably 3 or 4 different areas. So yeah, for as long as I've been in the insights arena, I've been frustrated, I guess, by this sort of one-off nature of projects. And we like to think that we're sort of building on the knowledge from project to project, and we do, and we have been, but I've always been frustrated that it doesn't feel like we're really fully leveraging all of the knowledge we have. So I would say that'd be the first area that I expect we're going to move from this sort of data gathering and one-off projects to more almost like this knowledge management. I know that's a bit of an overused term, but I really think that we're going to see a big difference in that area. Almost like a continuous meta-analysis as opposed to a once every year or two exercise, and that's going to be the expectation. The other term that I think gets batted around is that, at least internally, that we like to be positioned or viewed as trusted advisors. So, moving from the custodians of the data, or hey, I have a question, let's go to the insights group, that we're really going to have the opportunity to sort of step up and be that trusted advisor. And I've often said that you're there when the brand team that you're a part of doesn't make any key decision or attend any key meeting without you in the room. I really believe that AI is going to help get to that point for those that know how to use it. And the other term that I've heard discussed is moving from this project-based research to almost always on intelligence. And that's not necessarily the artificial intelligence, but that is sort of what we can bring to the table. So I'm very excited about that area or that angle. And then I guess the other area that I'm envisioning is people that are doing their jobs well are probably already doing this. But in some instances, we're viewed and almost siloed or put in a box as a functional specialist. So if we have a research question, we know who to go to. But depending where the AI systems live, I believe we have this opportunity to be like across enterprise connectors almost, by bringing in data from many disparate parts. At least that's the way it often is today, whether that's from our medical organizations and our sales organizations, and of course our insights functions and our marketing teams. We have to go to a lot of different places, but if we can really bring that all in-house for this collective insight, I think it positions the insights functions and teams very well for the future.
Awesome. So that's a very positive vision for change and impact over the next 5 years. So the bet you're taking then is it's going to be impacted, but insights is going to be elevated. It's going to be even more awesome. That's the bet.
Yeah. So I guess I need to have a disclaimer. I tend to be an optimist, glass half full person anyway, and I'm not too intimidated by change. Rather, I embrace it. But just hearing you sort of paraphrase what I've just said, it reminds me of a talk I heard many years ago now, and the person was expressing a concern that said, insights is losing the best and brightest talent to other disciplines, and her pitch was, we need to make insights sexy again, and that really stuck with me, right? And I think that embracing AI does truly have that potential to make insights in the insights industry sexy again. So
awesome. That's incredible. I am a congenital optimist as well. Kevin Kelly, a writer, has this line which I truly believe in, which is the future belongs to optimists. And especially at a time of change, I think it's very natural to kind of feel trepidation as your natural reaction. And I think it's important to go beyond that and try to embrace the moment and see what possibilities are made available by the change. And all of the ideas that you laid out for insights, I think are fantastic. Yeah. The insights can transcend some of the challenges that it faces today by using the possibilities of AI. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, John, was clearly, I mean, from a technology wave that you're seeing, this is not the first one. This is not your first rodeo, right? You've seen. You mentioned earlier when we spoke that you used to do market research where the recordings used to be in VHS tapes. You've seen the internet come along. You've seen big data come. You've seen digital transformation being a pharma-wide priority. And we've all seen some of these waves overpromise and underdeliver, and some of these waves have actual impact. How do you view AI on that spectrum? Do you think it's a transformational technology, or do you think it's snake oil?
So I have spoke with some folks that have described this AI frenzy as the latest shiny new bauble. So that's obviously at one end of the spectrum. Yeah, I would certainly be at the other end of the spectrum. I think it's probably going to be even larger and more impactful than we can envision today, which is a polar opposite, I think, of the past experiences. And you referenced a few with big data. 15, 20 years ago, everyone was on the bandwagon that big data is going to change the industry. And obviously I'm coming at this with a bias of the pharmaceutical industry. Certainly in financial services, big data is very powerful, and same in some other industries, the way you can match data to individual people. But the nature of our industry, with a lot of data protections around healthcare data, I think limits some of what we can do, and especially outside the U.S., where data privacy protections are much stronger than what we have. So I have not seen big changes, at least in the insights function, when it comes to big data. That was a pretty big flop. There was a lot of talk and a lot of investment in digital transformation years ago. I don't hear so much about that now, and then certainly there are advances, but I think a lot of that has been incremental changes. For some of the folks that might be listening to this, I'm sure they're going to have to Google what a VHS tape is. But yes, that used to be what we would record our sessions on. There were no digital recordings or even DVDs at that time. So yeah, but the reason I used to carry this box of tapes from office to office, and even country to country, was in the back of my mind, I was convinced these thousands of hours of discussions that I had taken place with patients and physicians and caregivers across all kinds of different therapeutic areas, these would be an incredibly valuable resource at some point. But yet it was just sitting on my shelf. I was waiting for technologies or use cases where I could pull back these things. And I tried at the time, different transcription services where you could play the tape and then nothing worked. So yeah, after many moves, even across countries and oceans, eventually I did throw this out, because I said, you know what, it's just never going to happen. If I had hung on to them for like another 15 years, I think we're here now. But yeah, that's long since gone in the rubbish bin.
That's a fascinating story. Yeah, if you had the tapes, I think transcribing it would have been easy, as long as you could play them. That would be the hard part.
Find a device that still exists. Go on eBay.
So John, I want to come back to your really positive vision that you keep coming back to. How did you come to this? Right? I mean, skepticism about the transformative power of technology is a natural impulse for people in pharma, because we tend to be a bit conservative for very good reasons, some of which you alluded to, privacy concerns, with respect to data being primary reason. Where does this positive vision come from? Is it from using these technologies outside of work and having aha moments with them, or using these at work and developing this perspective? How do you come to this very, very forward-looking view of AI and its potential for pharma insights?
So I've never really thought about how I go about this until you just posed that question. I guess most of these technologies, I always try in my private life first. When I was first introduced to Facebook, and I don't know when that was, 2005 or 2007 or whatever it was, someone had approached me and said, "Hey, you can do research on Facebook." And I said, "Okay, what is that again?" Facebook. Okay, so then I go in there and I start playing with it. And I go, "Come on, this is crazy." Like in very select use cases, but I can't envision ever doing it. But so I've done that with a lot of things over the years. So let's step forward now, 15 years. What was it? God, October, November, December 2022, something like that. You started seeing all kinds of media explosion around this. So I started sort of playing with stuff back then. And then there was I don't know if it was 12 months after that, but there were two events that really made me go like, wow, this is crazy. So, for those that are international or have international context, there's a messaging platform called WhatsApp. And on WhatsApp, you can actually download your entire conversation history. So I did that with someone who I've exchanged tens of thousands of messages with over the years. And, I just started saying, okay, here's the file. Tell me about this friendship. Tell me where it was strengthened, where it was weakened, what were the pivotal moments. I just started asking all kinds of questions, and I'm going like, wow, like this is actually pretty accurate, right? So then the next thing, I am completely addicted to Peloton. So don't ask me any questions about Peloton, or we're gonna run out of time for the conversation. But I downloaded my workout history on Peloton, which I have like 6-7 years now there. And similar things, right? So, okay, so who are my favorite instructors? How has that changed? How has my workout time changed? Has my intensity? Started asking it all these things that would have taken hours when I used to program in SPSS to sort of get some insights from. And then I just started asking like random questions, like, what in this data set, looks unusual or surprising, or like, what were the and the stuff was like bang on, like it was crazy. And then I go, okay, wow. Like, so after those two events, which happened very close together, I was converted. Then I started sort of seeking out different instructors or thought leaders on the internet, and then recognizing some really cool ways to try and introduce this to folks that maybe hadn't caught the bug yet. I've just spent another couple of minutes talking about that stuff. So there's this instructor out on the West Coast. He's like, I forget where he's teaching now, but there's a platform called Coursera, and you can take lots of courses there. And I think he has 500,000 or 600,000 students who have taken courses that he sort of put up online. And he was saying, start easy, right? So how do you start easy? So one of the things that we do on a regular basis in my house is we come up with games. So you just take your camera and take a picture of your desk right now and say, okay, so I have a 9-year-old daughter. She loves to play games during dinner time. And if I have to play I Spy in our kitchen one more time, I think I'm just going to like eat outside. It's like you can only spy so many things in the kitchen that you eat in 300 times a year. So came up with games that so let's come up with a game appropriate for a family, including a 9-year-old daughter who this game should be less than 15 minutes, blah blah blah, right? And then it came up with a game, and it was really good. So that was one use case. That just start with that. So you go to a new restaurant, right? So just type in I'm a vegetarian. So okay, so take a picture of your menu and say, what on this menu would be appropriate for a vegetarian who's craving something, whatever, savory tonight. Right? And then it'll scan through and it'll give you a suggestion, right? And there were all these use cases just to sort of show the power. So those are some of the things that I'm starting to share internally. And perhaps I'm jumping ahead in the conversation here, but I guess my biggest fear for the insights folks is they get left behind. Because it is certainly my belief that if people don't embrace, engage, and figure out how to use this, they are going to get left behind. Because coming back to your first question, I don't think the insights jobs are going to be eliminated, but role descriptions, I truly believe, are going to evolve greatly and quickly. This isn't something that's going to be 10 or 15 years from now. This is going to be something that's going to be 12 or 15 months from now. And I expect most of our jobs have already changed some.
That's interesting. So I really loved your examples. One of the things that I strongly believe, and I keep telling the folks that I work with, is interact with these technologies as play, not necessarily work. It's going to open up many more creative possibilities. It's going to lower the stakes a lot. I mean, I too believe that the structure of the jobs are going to change, and jobs are not necessarily going to get eliminated. But if you are interacting with these technologies, I think that question is there in the back of most people's mind. And the kind of use cases that you spoke about, right? Developing games for family, playing games with family. My wife used it to design our kitchen, and it did a fantastic job. And it transforms your relationship with the technology. You just naturally become much more curious, much more open-minded for the possibilities. You end up learning things. The Peloton use case is fascinating because through that experience, you've learned that, hey, this thing is incredible at analyzing data, which is what I do anyway. So this is a key takeaway for me and my teams. So I think engaging with these technologies in play mode, in hobbies, I think is a fantastic introduction. And that's something that I really encourage my teams to do. With respect to your concern about people getting left behind, I want to spend some time talking about that. Obviously, among the people that you lead, I am guessing that there is a fairly wide distribution with respect to their current knowledge levels with AI, their current interest levels, their natural tendency of being an early adopter versus a more conservative late adopter. How are you leading people through this change?
So, yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it really depends on the individual, right? And you've already sort of alluded to that. Some folks are going to be very afraid of change. You're going to have other folks that are willing to be the first out there as the guinea pig. Those people, those sort of first adopters, early adopters, I'm trying to sort of keep up with them because I'm going to learn so much from them as we're building our first AI agents and our first, not synthetic data set, but our first experts on competitor A versus competitor B, and I've learned so much every month. So that's like it's definitely a mutually beneficial relationship. Obviously, the challenging side are the folks that are reluctant or describing this AI stuff as the latest shiny new bauble, and it's all hype and there's nothing there. It's what I've been trying to do is just whether it's a one-on-one situation, telling them about some cool thing that I discovered last night or over the weekend, or whether I have an opportunity to do a short presentation to the folks in the department, just to sort of share some of the things. There's so many use cases that we've discussed, whether it's just improving your email communications. You don't need to use this stuff for every email, but if you're sending out an email to like 50 folks, and these are all the most senior people in the organization, why not just throw it into there and make sure that there's not some edits that you can make that make you sound a little more intelligent, right? It's just super easy stuff. We've even done some examples where working on a global team, English is not their first language for the majority of folks. So doing presentations can be a challenge. And then there was one person who put their slides into a chat GPT like system and said, please develop speaker notes for each of these slides. This should be, anywhere from 60 to 120 seconds. And then at the end of their talk, their presentation, they said, and I should let you know that this presentation has been brought to you by, ChatGPT. Yeah, and then he explained what that meant. So, by showing people how you can use these technologies, I think that's probably, in my experience, even more effective than trying to shove it down someone's throat, because people get really resistant when you're forcing it on them. But when you show them how it can make your life easier and you demystify that stuff, our organization has been having these, call them sharing sessions, for probably 2 years now, right? Just trying to show different ways you can actually use this and how it can make your life, like I said, easier. That has brought, certainly not everyone, but it has brought a lot of people forward.
A quick message from our sponsors. Your team spends weeks on competitive landscapes, asset screens, and conference coverage. The tools give you search results. The synthesis is still on you. Pharma changes that. Pharma is the AI-powered intelligence platform for life sciences, built around the workflows your team runs every week. You define the objective. Agents execute. You get a finished, cited deliverable. No more fragmented databases, no more hours of manual synthesis. Agents do the assembly. Your team builds the conviction. Visit pharma.ai to book a demo.
Last week, there was this MIT Sloan publication that said that, I don't remember the number, but I think it was either 90 or 95% of Gen AI pilots in enterprise is not showing positive ROI. Are you surprised by that number?
Probably not, because we're so early in this cycle. Like I said, we were just saying, it's under 3 years ago when this sort of exploded. So that probably means that most of these pilots maybe started 18 months ago, even if we're being generous. So if this was any other product, we use the pharma example, you're not looking for a positive ROI until years 3 to years 5. So we're still super early there, right? We're just figuring out how to use this, but there's been enough promise that I think that's why companies are still dumping so much money into it. So yeah, I would say, we're encouraging experimentation, and let's find out where it can add the most value. And certainly not every case is it going to add value. But I think we've found enough to say, at least for us in the insights area, it's not the shiny new bauble. There's actually something there.
So I have two follow-up questions to that. One is, going into 2026, if you were to guess across pharma how insights teams are talking about and resourcing for Gen AI, is the conversation one of three choices? Choice one, hey, Gen AI can help us save a bunch of money in 2026. Second is, Gen AI is something that we should be actively pursuing. It's early, it has a lot of promise, we've got to experiment. So we'll try a lot of things, but we don't necessarily want to prematurely optimize and burden it with ROI expectations. Choice three is, Gen AI is very exciting, not just from a cost optimization view, but from an effectiveness view, analogous to a lot of your examples that you gave at the top of the podcast. What do you think is the bucketing of each of these three conversations across, I don't know, the top 100 biopharma companies, if you were to guess at the insights teams?
So put percentages to each of those buckets.
Yes, let's get a crosstab.
All right. So for the ROI, I have to believe that's still the minority. So let's say let's save a bunch of money. I say 5%. I can't believe most. If you're looking at the top 20 pharma companies or top 100, I think that's still going to be the minority. Sort of bucket two. Basically let's embrace this and find out where we can use it. I would put the bulk of the companies in there now. So let's say that's going to be 75% of the companies I think are going to be in that space. From talking to peers and other companies at some of the industry events, I don't think I've spoke with anyone who's not doing something with it right now. And then what does that leave? 75. So 20%, I guess, is in the last bucket. How does that fit with what you see?
I'm generally in agreement. I think there is a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of appetite to see actual use cases. And I think that's still very much an active search. I don't think the killer app or apps for insights teams specifically have gained wide adoption yet. So people are still looking. People are generally enthusiastic. There seems to be some sort of mandate from leadership on this being a priority area, and that is driving a lot of the enthusiasm. But in addition to that, there's also unambiguously just a fairly high degree of familiarity with these tools that people are using to do other things in their everyday life. So we're not necessarily explaining technology to people. People know what it is. They want to know how they can deploy it to do insights better. So you mentioned that in your organization, the consensus view now is that this is not a shiny bauble. And in that case, are there one or two specific applications of this for insights that you think have a lot of promise, that get you very excited, that could be the killer apps, so to speak, for insights teams?
Yeah, so where I have seen the biggest benefit sort of takes me back to those video cassette analogies, right? Where we have now built numerous AI agents, with and whatever, loading them with specific types of intelligence, right? So if we're doing patient and caregiver AI agent, we put a lot of conversations around that, and then we're using those to almost like early message development, right? So you can get some reactions. Now, I'm not saying we're at the point where it's going to completely replace any of the primary market research we're doing, but it certainly can start to trim down some of the, I don't want to say garbage, but some of the stuff that comes from the agencies maybe is just a little too out there, or it always brings new perspectives that we wouldn't have considered, right? So we're able to almost do some pilot runs of these messages before it goes out there. So that's again, early days, but that's proven to be effective. And I'm sure at some point there will be someone looking at an ROI saying, okay, well, how much money did we save on the agency side of things? And maybe we didn't need to do 3 rounds of creative work this time. We only did 1 or 2 because we were able to refine so much before we went into research. That's certainly possible, but we haven't done that yet. So we have, I don't even know how many different agents we have right now, but 50 probably across the different therapeutic areas. Wow. and different products. So that's certainly served very, very well. A little outside of at least primary market research, but I've seen huge advances in the last 12 or 18 months in competitive intelligence and the ability to, very quickly summarize entire conferences, with some of the AI agents that have been developed. So that has certainly brought down costs, depending on the vendors that you're using, but it's also the speed. So I think that has been very promising to summarize all of the secondary literature that's coming out in these conferences.
Yeah, a lot of very familiar themes there, and yes, I think those are really exciting applications. Pivoting topics, one of the things that I'm mildly obsessed about is organizational structure. I'm a big believer in Conway's law, which loosely speaking translates to tell me what your org structure is, and I tell you what outcomes you'll achieve. Given that so much of how to use AI comes down to context and context engineering, how do we make sure that we structure AI appropriately within the firm? Do we make it functional? Like, should each function have an AI mandate? Or is this something that we view as a technology problem and try to span across the organization? What models have you seen? What do you think will work?
Yeah, so again, I can only really speak in depth about my current organization. So there, every function is developing their own agents, which is great for early adoption, right? It's a very effective way to expose a lot of people very quickly. But I don't see that viable in the long term because there is so much duplication of effort. If I'm building an AI agent to look at competitor A, and I'm using my data sets, and then my medical counterpart is also building their AI agent for the same competitor A using the medical data sets. Isn't it obvious that we should probably be collaborating somehow? And wouldn't it be a richer source of information if we could put these things together? Same thing within the sales organization, same thing across global teams and local teams. I think this is just a function of where we are in the adoption cycle, right? We're still very early. So I guess it's okay for now. But I would expect there to be some sort of consolidation and a lead who's going to just bring these overlapping things together so we can stop all the redundancy that is clearly going on.
A follow-up question. If I were to tell you that there is a, I don't know, top 25 pharma company that has a chief AI officer or a chief Gen AI officer, would knowing that increase or decrease your prior probability of that firm achieving success in its AI mandate in the short term today?
Well, not to go too deep, but I guess it depends what that mandate is. But I would think that's good news. I would say it's probably positive. So because at some point there is going to be someone who's going to come around and say, hey, look, we're spending X million dollars on all of these resources. Show me the proof. And if as you were saying, the MIT study is saying 90 to 95% of these things are just a big cash burn. That's not going to go on forever, especially the size of some of these teams in our organizations. So yeah, I think it's a positive step. What do they call these models? A federalized model where you have someone who's sort of overseeing things, but each department still has high degrees of autonomy. So yeah, depends how it gets executed, but at this point, I still think it's the number one mandate is get people comfortable with it, overcome all of the angst that people have, and let's start adopting this stuff to enrich the solutions we're bringing.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I agree with you on the federated model being the right model eventually. I would actually decrease. I would say that they've hired the chief AI officer 24 months too early. I feel like right now it's more just let people become comfortable in kind of their functions in more informal structures. Let the teams experiment widely, figure out what works. They know best. And then when you find those use cases and you want to scale, which will take time, that's when you probably put more structure around it. But
You'll
yeah,
have to send me the information on which company that is, and then we can regroup in 24 months and see where
no,
things stand.
it's a hypothetical. It's a hypothetical, just to be
Okay.
clear. But at the same time, I spend more time than I care to admit on LinkedIn just studying how these companies are organizing around AI, and there are a lot of different models, and it's not an easy question, and I feel like it's fascinating to study. I mean, even at ZoomRx, this is a problem that we're dealing with, right? How do we get our team and our company educated, excited, and aligned? And yeah, it's interesting to study different models. Great, we're coming up on time, so I want to just look forward to the next 12 months. Early on, you mentioned that a lot of the change could happen as early as in the next 12 to 18 months. Another hypothetical question for you. If in 18 months, the story hasn't really changed, right? In that there is still a lot of promise, still a lot of experimentation, but MIT releases a study that's saying, hey, this 90 to 95% of the pilots are still failing. What is your hypothesis on what could be causing that? Another way of asking that is, what is the biggest risk of at least that leads to lack of short-term success for these initiatives?
So what would cause that, I guess?
In pharma, specifically.
Yeah.
Specifically in pharma.
Yeah. I guess the question that's on my mind is, let's take these AI agents I was discussing, right? So early promise looks great. But I'm starting to wonder if I'm coming up to my limitations in terms of, how I can, write accurate prompts. Do I know enough about what's behind the scenes? Do I know enough about the quality of the data that I'm putting in to inform this agent? I think I'm okay, but it could be the users need more technical expertise to take it to that next level. So that would be one of the hypotheses that I might come up with, is that we're okay at a general level. I can dump my Peloton routine in there and ask it all kinds of questions, and it's going to do a great job of sort of pulling out crosstabs and all the stuff that you can do instantly, as opposed to spending hours. But how do you get it to that the next level? So that it could be that we do need more experts, guiding these processes. That'd be my hypothesis if we get there. Although I will say for myself, I've learned so much in 18 months, right? I used to start writing prompts with like 1 and 2 sentences, and then I started talking to other folks, and they're going, our prompts are like 5 pages long. I'm going, what? You can do that? Like, it never even occurred to me that I could write paragraphs of prompts, right? So now you see my prompts or my AI agents that are sort of giving them all this background information. It's certainly evolved greatly. So I would expect 12 or 18 months from now, I will have learned another bunch of information. But let's see.
Final question. If there is one suggestion or tip that you have for an insights professional in pharma on how to stay on top of all of these crazy developments. I mean, things change every day. How should they drink from the fire hose? What's your strategy? What's your recommendation?
Oh, probably the same advice I would give anyone who's just even trying to get into the industry. It's just talk to people, right? Whether it's sending things via LinkedIn, whether it's calling people up. Yeah. Very seldom do I ever not take the time to talk to somebody if they show an interest in an initiative, right? People that are passionate about a certain topic in our industry are usually happy to share that information. And if you reach out to 10 people and only 5 of them or 3 of them get back to you, great. That's awesome. Because I found so many people are very eager and willing to share and discuss that information with you. So that would certainly be my number one tip, even though picking up the phone is not such a common thing.
Seek a human mentor is your.
Yeah, that is certainly sort of point one. Point two is just go out and have fun. You can even use whatever model it is that you want and ask it to tell you, how do I start, right? And it's going to tell you how to start. It's going to tell you how to write a good prompt on whatever the topic is. But yeah, just go and play, because and now you have a teacher there who's going to play with you. Again, years ago, if you wanted to learn a new computer language or learn statistics, it was tough. Now you have a PhD level system that is going to give you information at the PhD level, or you can tell it to explain it to you like you're 5, and it'll do that too, right? So it has that capacity. So there's nothing intimidating. Just devote 15 or 20 minutes rather than scrolling on Instagram or whatever. Just play with ChatGPT. You can make the time. It's important.
Keep playing and keep talking. That's your advice.
That's my tagline.
Awesome.
Have fun, keep playing, keep talking. Yeah.
On that note, John, thanks so much for your time. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
All right, I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
A quick message from our sponsors. Your insights team is fast, your tools are not. Competitive landscapes, asset screens, conference coverage. The synthesis is still manual. Pharma fixes that. You define the objective. Agents do the work. You get a finished, cited deliverable. Visit pharma.ai to book a demo.